Hello, this is your girl Femi. Thank you for coming back. I did say see you next week, so this is next week. Last week we did discuss identity crisis and being grounded in as an African, being raised in American culture. I want to continue today. We will dig deeper into the situation about my daughter being racially profiled at age 5 by her classmate. So with that situation when it happened, she attended a Christian school, which was the school church that we attended. And the principal of the school also attended the church. So I knew her from church and we knew each other from school. It happened after school. They call it after school program, aftercare. When I approached her and told her what happened, she was like, oh, she couldn't touch that because it happened after school. It didn't happen during school. Okay, I was like, well, fair enough. It happened a second time. This time it happened during break. During school hours, but during break. I went back to her. She said, well, unfortunately, it happened during break. So, pardon me, it's not going to happen during class. I don't think it would have happened during class. It would happen during something social. So I told her, you know what, if you're not going to deal with it, I will deal with it. And I dealt with it. I went to the parents and I spoke to them. They apologized. The parents were like, no, we didn't raise her that way. Her name, I remember her name. The parents were like, we didn't raise her that way. They apologized. And they made sure that their daughter apologized to my daughter, and that stopped. And the principal, a few years later, she came to me and apologized. What she did was wrong. And I want to address this because if I hadn't stood up for my daughter and taken matters into my hands, that part would have continued. And I see that sometimes as Africans living in the Western world, we're kind of timid. We don't know how to fight either for ourselves or for our kids. But I'm glad that I had that boldness. I still have that boldness that I was able to take my child and say, no, this is not going to continue. And I was able to speak with the parents. And it was actually good that the parents were amiable too. They were like, you know what, we didn't raise her this way. We're going to talk to her. How do you imagine a 5-year-old doing that at age 5? You can't be in a group because you're this color. And whomever wanted to play with her could not play with her because if they played with her, they were not going to be in the group. So, but thankfully that ended well and it didn't continue beyond that. And I also want to say it's not necessarily the kids that will racially profile your kids. I mean, it won't be their peer. It could be the teacher racially profiling them. And sometimes they do it in a subtle way. Unfortunately, yes, we did move to Phoenix so that there will be more of us. There are more of us, people that look like us skin-wise, but again, there's still more white people than more of us. When that school that my oldest one was, after a few years, they closed the school down because financially the school wasn't able to continue. So we went to another school. This is another Christian school. And one of my daughters, when she was in 4th grade, my middle one, we had gone to London. And you know how after the summer, when you come back, they'll say, what did you do for the summer? So she said that she traveled to London and the teacher reprimanded her in front of the whole class and said that she was bragging. Pardon me, how do you brag about what did you do over the summer? I went to London. She said, well, not everybody was able to travel to London. She shouldn't have brought that up. So when it got to me, when my daughter came to me and told me, I was like, no, this is wrong. So I went to school and I spoke with the teacher and I'm like, no, you asked the question. She answered the question. In what way did that seem like she was bragging? Because she was telling the class about her experience. So I'm just letting us know that it's a good thing to stand up for our kids because honestly, some of them won't even come home to tell us. And these are things that would affect them. Back in the day, the word bully was not used. Now, we use the word bully and it's everywhere. It's on social media. It's in your everyday going back and forth, going to work. And so I'm glad that I stood up for my children at that time. I just want to encourage new and upcoming parents that are moving to the Western world, please stand up for your children because again, it can have a lasting negative impact on them emotionally. I actually had this discussion with my youngest on the way home today. I'm like, this is what I'm going to talk about. She was like, back then, because I remember a few times she had issues too, even in high school. And I went to school with her. I stood up for her. She's like, at that point, I didn't see the point because I didn't want to be embarrassed that my parent came to school with me. But she said, in retrospect, I hope I have the kind of boldness that you have when I start having kids. Because honestly, like I said, it could affect them. I had another discussion with my oldest about a month ago. She's a new mom and I can't remember what the issue was. And she said, you know, mom, Nigerians have normalized trauma. So we have to get to the place where we understand what trauma is. Some people, when they're traumatized, they're not able to get away from that for life. Some people, yes, the way we were raised, our generation, we were raised with resilience. But do we necessarily have to go that when you know that something is affecting you and you're just biting your tongue, you know, you're keeping it in and you're just being strong about it instead of, you know what, you can deal with it, nip it in the butt and keep moving. So thank you for coming along this week. We continued from last week. Next week, I'm gonna have my younger daughter come and we'll go over a few issues from their perspective. She's a Gen Z. Are you Gen X or Gen Z? And from me, that I'm almost 60, I don't know what gen I am. So, but anyway, we'll sit together next week and we'll have a few back and forth. We'll banter about some of the things that she felt like she learned growing up and some of the things that she wished that she didn't have to go through. Thank you. See you next week.